Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizon and watched the stars through the main window. His ship had been traveling through space for 3 months now, looking for new planets that humans could visit. The crew was tired, but excited because they had just discovered something amazing near Alpha Centauri. Jake was a tall man with brown hair and calm blue eyes. He had been flying ships in space for 15 years and had never seen anything like what happened next. Communication Officer Lieutenant Amy Scott suddenly looked up from her station with wide eyes. She pressed her earpiece and listened carefully to something that made her face go pale. Jake walked over to her station and asked what was wrong. Amy told him that they were getting a message from something that was not human. The message was coming from empty space, but the signals were too strong and too organized to be natural. Dr. Lisa Parker rushed to the bridge when she heard the news. She was Earth's best expert on the possibility of alien life. Lisa was a small woman with red hair and green eyes who always carried notebooks full of drawings and calculations. She had spent her whole life hoping the humans would one day meet aliens. Now that day had come, and she felt both excited and scared. The message came through the ship's main speakers in perfect English. The voice was strange and seemed to come from several different creatures speaking at the same time. It said that humans were now known to the Galactic Council and that Earth must follow new rules immediately. The voice explained that humans were too violent and dangerous to be allowed to travel freely through space. All human military activities must stop right away, or there would be serious consequences. Jake felt his heart beating faster as he listened to the alien message. He had fought in several wars on Earth and knew that humans were good at fighting, but he had never thought that aliens would see this as a bad thing. The message continued and said that humans had been watched for many years. The aliens knew all about human wars and conflicts. They had decided that humans were too savage to join the peaceful galaxy. Back on Earth, Admiral Rick Barnes was in his office at Space Command when he received Jake's emergency transmission. Rick was a big man with gray hair and scars on his hands from his years as a soldier. He had worked his way up through the military by being smart and tough. When he heard about the alien message, he immediately called President Maria Santos. President Santos was in a meeting with her advisors when Rick's call came through. Maria was a strong leader who had been elected because she promised to keep Earth safe. She had short black hair and dark eyes that could be kind or fierce depending on the situation. When she heard about the aliens, she told everyone to stay calm, but began making plans for what might come next. The alien fleet appeared at the edge of the solar system exactly 24 hours after the first message. There were more than 200 ships of different shapes and sizes. Some looked like giant metal birds, while others were round like planets. The largest ships were longer than Earth's biggest cities. They all moved together in perfect formation. As they approached Earth, Ambassador Zixth stood on the command bridge of the lead alien ship and looked at Earth through the viewing screen. Zixth belonged to a race called the Kepler Coalition. His people were tall and thin with gray skin and large black eyes. They had been the first species to join the Galactic Council and believed strongly in peace and order. Zixth had studied humans for years and thought they were just another primitive species that needed to be controlled. The alien ambassador had read reports about human wars throughout history. He had seen images of battles and destruction that humans had caused on their own planet. To Zixth and the other council members, these wars proved that humans were mindless and brutal. They did not understand that human conflicts had actually made humans very good at strategy and tactics. The aliens thought that being good at war was the same as being stupid and savage. Dr. Lisa Parker worked day and night to understand the alien communications. She discovered that the messages were coming from 12 different species that had joined together under the Galactic Council. Each species had its own language and way of thinking, but they all agreed that humans were dangerous. Lisa tried to send messages back to the aliens, explaining that humans could be peaceful, but the aliens did not want to listen. Meanwhile, Admiral Rick Barnes was meeting with military leaders from around the world. General Pete Collins came from the Army. Colonel Amy Rodriguez represented Special Forces, and many other commanders joined the emergency conference. Rick told them that the aliens had given Earth 72 hours to surrender completely. All human weapons would have to be destroyed, and Earth would be governed by alien rules. The military leaders looked at each other with concern, but not fear. They had all fought in wars, and knew that every enemy could be defeated if you understood their weaknesses. Pete Collins was especially interested in the alien demand for surrender. In his experience, enemies who wanted quick surrenders were usually not prepared for long fights. President Santos called an emergency meeting with leaders from every nation on Earth. The meeting was held in a secure location underground in case the aliens tried to attack. Maria explained the situation and asked for everyone to work together. Some leaders wanted to surrender immediately to avoid a war. Others wanted to fight back, no matter what the cost might be. Dr. Steve Wong joined the meeting by video link from his laboratory. Steve was a scientist who studied alien technology and had been working on ways to improve human space travel. He told the leaders that he had been analyzing the alien ships and found something interesting. The aliens seemed to use very advanced technology, but their tactics were simple and predictable. They moved their ships like they were in a parade. Instead of preparing for battle, as the 72-hour deadline approached, more alien ships arrived in the solar system. The fleet grew to over 300 vessels from many different worlds. Each species had sent their best ships and soldiers to show humans how powerful the Galactic Council was. They expected humans to be terrified and surrender without any resistance. Jake Morrison and the crew of the New Horizon were ordered to return to Earth immediately. As their ship traveled back through space, they could see the massive alien fleet waiting near Earth's moon. The alien ships were beautiful and impressive, but Jake noticed something that worried him. The ships were arranged in neat rows, like they were on display rather than ready for combat. It seemed like the aliens had never fought against an enemy that might fight back effectively. The final alien message came exactly 72 hours after the first contact. Ambassador Zixth spoke directly to all humans on Earth through every television, radio, and computer. He said that the time for peaceful surrender had ended. The Galactic Council would now take control of Earth by force. Human military forces would be destroyed, and human leaders would be replaced by alien governors. President Santos responded immediately with a message that surprised the aliens. She said that humans appreciated the aliens making contact, but Earth would never surrender to anyone. Humans had fought for their freedom for thousands of years and would continue to do so. She told the aliens that if they wanted to control Earth, they would have to take it by force. But they should be prepared for the consequences. The alien fleet began moving toward Earth as soon as they received the president's message. Ambassador Zixth was confident that the invasion would be over quickly. The aliens had superior technology and overwhelming numbers. They had studied human warfare and believed it was disorganized and ineffective. They were about to learn that they had made a terrible mistake about what humans were capable of when they were fighting for their survival. Commander Alex Turner sat in the communications center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains and listened to alien radio signals. Alex was a smart officer who had learned to speak 7 different languages during his military career. His job was to figure out what enemies were planning by listening to their conversations. Now he was using those same skills to understand the aliens who wanted to conquer Earth. What Alex discovered in the alien communications shocked him completely. The aliens were not prepared for the kind of war that humans knew how to fight. Their Conversations revealed that most alien species had never been in a real battle that lasted more than a few days. When they fought wars, it was more like a competition, where the side with better technology would win quickly, and the losing side would surrender right away. The alien admiral leading the invasion was named Verhan the Enforcer. He belonged to a species called the Drakmari, who were the military arm of the Galactic Council. Verhan was over 8 feet tall with thick armor-like skin and 4 powerful arms. His people had conquered dozens of worlds, but they had done it by simply showing up with their impressive ships and scaring other species into giving up without a fight. Alex listened as Verhan talked to his officers about the upcoming invasion of Earth. The alien admiral sounded confident and even bored. He told his commanders that humans were just another primitive species that would collapse as soon as they saw the power of the Galactic Council fleet. Verhan had studied human history and dismissed it as nothing but mindless violence and chaos. Dr. Steve Wong was working in his laboratory when Alex shared the intercepted alien communications with him. Steve was a brilliant scientist who had spent years studying how different species might fight wars in space. When he heard what the aliens were saying about humans, he realized that the Galactic Council had made a huge mistake in their understanding of human warfare. Steve explained to the military commanders that the aliens saw human conflicts as random and brutal because they did not understand human strategy. The aliens came from species that had evolved differently than humans. Most of them had been prey animals on their home worlds and had developed advanced technology to avoid fighting rather than to become better at it. They had never learned the complex tactics and strategies that humans had developed over thousands of years of warfare. General Pete Collins was fascinated by this information. Pete was a career soldier who had fought in conflicts all over the world. He understood that the best way to win a war was to know your enemy's weaknesses. If the aliens expected humans to fight like wild animals, then humans could use that mistake against them. Pete began developing a defense strategy that would take advantage of the aliens' misunderstanding of human capabilities. The plan that Pete created was extremely risky, but might be the only way to defeat such a large alien fleet. Instead of trying to fight the aliens in space, where they had superior technology, humans would let them land on Earth. Then human forces would show the aliens what real warfare looked like. The plan was called Operation Homecoming, and it required perfect timing and coordination. Colonel Amy Rodriguez was put in charge of the special operations units that would be the key to the defense plan. Amy was a small but tough woman who had led dangerous missions in some of the worst places on Earth. She was an expert at guerrilla warfare and asymmetric tactics. Amy understood that humans could not match the aliens in terms of technology, but humans were much better at adapting to changing situations during combat. Dr. Steve Wong made another important discovery while studying the alien fleet. He found that most of the species in the Galactic Council had never developed the kind of aggressive instincts that made humans effective fighters. These aliens had evolved on worlds where cooperation and avoiding conflict were the keys to survival. Their advanced technology had made them powerful, but it had also made them soft and unprepared for the brutal reality of human-style warfare. The alien species that made up the Galactic Council included the Kepler Coalition, the Harmony Collective, the Unity Federation, and several others. Each group had joined the Council because they wanted to avoid wars and conflicts. They believed that the galaxy should be a peaceful place where disputes were settled through negotiation and compromise. The idea of fighting a long and bloody war was completely foreign to their way of thinking. Ambassador Zixthith was becoming concerned as he read the reports from his intelligence officers. The humans were not behaving the way that conquered species usually did. Instead of panicking and begging for mercy, the humans seemed to be preparing for battle. Their military forces were moving into defensive positions and their leaders were giving speeches about fighting to the death. This was not what Zixth had expected to happen. Commander Alex Turner continued to monitor alien communications and discovered something else that worried the human leadership. The aliens were not just planning to conquer Earth. They intended to completely restructure human society and eliminate what they called aggressive tendencies in the human population. This meant that the aliens planned to change humans at a genetic level to make them more peaceful and obedient. President Maria Santos called an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council when she learned about the aliens' true intentions. Maria explained that this was not just an invasion, but an attempt to destroy humanity as a species. The aliens wanted to turn humans into docile servants who would never again be capable of fighting back against oppression. This information changed everything and united all of Earth's nations against the alien threat. Pete Collins presented his defense strategy to the world leaders. The plan would require enormous sacrifices and would put millions of civilian lives at risk. Major cities would have to be evacuated and then turned into battlegrounds. The human military would have to fight a type of war that would be more brutal and destructive than anything in human history. But it might be the only way to preserve human freedom and independence. The evacuation of Earth's major cities began immediately. Millions of people had to leave their homes and move to safe areas in the countryside. The operation was the largest movement of people in human history. Families were separated and entire communities were displaced. But most humans understood that this sacrifice was necessary to save their species from alien domination. Dr. Lisa Parker worked with teams of scientists to study every piece of information they could gather about alien biology and psychology. Lisa discovered that the different alien species had very different strengths and weaknesses. Some were physically powerful, but not very intelligent. Others were smart, but fragile. The key to defeating them would be to use tactics that exploited these differences and prevented the aliens from working together effectively. As the alien fleet moved closer to Earth, Verhan the Enforcer grew more confident about the upcoming invasion. His intelligence reports told him that humans were evacuating their cities and that their military forces were scattered and disorganized. To Verhan, this looked like the behavior of a defeated enemy that was already preparing to surrender. He had no idea that he was walking into the most sophisticated trap in military history. The final preparations for the defense of Earth were completed just hours before the alien fleet reached the planet. Human forces had prepared defensive positions in every major city and had stockpiled weapons and supplies for a long siege. Special forces units were hidden throughout the urban areas, ready to strike at the aliens when they least expected it. The stage was set for a battle that would determine the future of humanity and show the galaxy what humans were truly capable of when they fought for their survival. The alien invasion of Earth began at dawn on a Tuesday morning. Massive ships descended from the sky like dark clouds, blocking out the sun over major cities around the world. Verhan the Enforcer watched from his command ship as the first wave of landing craft approached New York, London, Tokyo, and dozens of other population centers. He expected to see millions of terrified humans running through the streets, begging for mercy from their new alien masters. Instead, Verhan saw empty streets and silent buildings. The cities looked abandoned, as if all the humans had simply vanished overnight. This confused the alien admiral, because his intelligence reports had told him that these were the most crowded places on Earth. Verhan ordered his communications officer to scan for human life signs, but the readings were strange and unclear. Lieutenant Colonel Danny Brooks crouched in a hidden position on the 20th floor of a Manhattan office building and watched the alien ships landing in Central Park. Danny was a combat engineer who had spent years learning how to turn cities into weapons. He had helped design the defensive plan that would turn Earth's urban areas into the aliens' worst nightmare. Danny spoke quietly into his radio to coordinate with other hidden human units throughout the city, the first alien troops to leave there. Landing craft were soldiers from the Kepler Coalition. They were tall, thin creatures with gray skin and large black eyes who moved in perfect formation across the empty streets. These aliens carried energy weapons that could destroy buildings with a single shot. They had conquered many worlds using these same tactics and expected Earth to fall just as easily. What the aliens did not know was that every building around them had been prepared as a fortress. Major Rachel Price and her urban warfare specialists had spent weeks turning the city into a maze of hidden passages, sniper nests, and booby traps. The aliens were walking into a killing ground that had been designed specifically to neutralize their technological advantages. The first human attack came without warning. Rachel's snipers opened fire from concealed positions in dozens of buildings simultaneously. The alien soldiers were caught completely off guard as their comrades began falling around them. The aliens had expected to face human armies in open battle, not invisible enemies who struck from the shadows and disappeared before they could be found. Verhan received the first casualty reports within minutes of the initial landing. His communications officer reported that coalition forces in multiple cities were under attack by human forces that seemed to appear and disappear like ghosts. The alien admiral was puzzled because this was not how wars were supposed to be fought. In his experience, armies met on battlefields, and the side with superior weapons would win quickly. Captain Mike Davis led a Marine unit that demonstrated the full power of human combined arms tactics. Mike's team included infantry soldiers, tank, crews, helicopter pilots, and artillery specialists who worked together as a seamless fighting machine. When the aliens tried to establish a base in downtown Los Angeles, Mike's forces hit them from multiple directions at once, using coordinated ground and air attacks. The alien ground forces had never faced anything like human military coordination. They were used to fighting battles where each side lined up and shot at each other until one side gave up. The humans fought like a pack of wolves, using teamwork and strategy to overcome enemies that were individually stronger and better armed. Each human unit supported the others in ways that the aliens could not understand or counter. Dr. Steve Wong monitored the battle from his underground command center and noticed something important about alien tactics. The different species in the Galactic Council fleet did not coordinate well with each other. The Kepler Coalition troops were methodical and careful, while the Drakmari soldiers were aggressive and direct. The Harmony Collective forces seemed confused and frightened by the violence. Steve realized that humans could exploit these differences. In Con space above Earth, Admiral Kate Sullivan was preparing to execute the most dangerous part of the human defense plan. Kate commanded a fleet of converted civilian ships that had been turned into weapons platforms. Her forces were outnumbered 10-1 by the alien fleet, but Kate had learned something important from studying alien communications. The aliens fought space battles, like formal dueling contests rather than total warfare. Kate's strategy was called Operation Prometheus, and it involved using human ships as guided missiles to destroy key alien vessels. The plan required many human pilots to sacrifice their lives by ramming their ships into alien command vessels. But these brave men and women understood that their sacrifice might save all of humanity. Kate gave the order to begin the operation just as the alien fleet was celebrating their successful landing on Earth. The first phase of operation, Prometheus targeted the alien communication ships that coordinated the different fleets. Human pilots flew converted mining vessels loaded with explosives directly into these crucial targets. The aliens were so shocked by this tactic that they did not react quickly enough to stop most of the suicide attacks. Within an hour, the alien fleet had lost its ability to coordinate between different species and ship types. Meanwhile, On Earth's surface, the urban warfare was intensifying in ways that terrified the alien invaders. Sergeant Julie Harris led a reconnaissance team through the subway tunnels beneath New York City. The tunnels had been turned into a supply network that allowed human forces to move unseen throughout the city. Julie's team could strike at alien positions and then disappear underground before the aliens could respond. The psychological impact on the alien soldiers was becoming severe. They had been trained to fight quick, clean battles where the rules were clear and the objectives were simple. The humans refused to follow these rules and instead fought with a brutal efficiency that the aliens had never encountered. Many alien soldiers began showing signs of what human military doctors recognized as combat stress disorder. Commander Ryan Clark was monitoring alien communications when he discovered that panic was spreading through the enemy ranks. The aliens were sending desperate messages to their home worlds, asking for reinforcements and new strategies. Many alien commanders were reporting that human resistance was far stronger than expected, and that their original invasion plan was failing completely. Turning point in the ground battle came when General Kevin Moore launched a coordinated counteroffensive in 12 cities simultaneously. Human forces that had been hiding in buildings and tunnels suddenly emerged to attack alien positions from every direction. The aliens found themselves surrounded by enemies who seemed to know the urban terrain better than the aliens knew their own. Ship's Major Chris Taylor led a special forces unit that captured an alien communications center in Berlin. The intelligence gathered from this facility revealed that the aliens were completely unprepared for the type of warfare that humans were fighting. The alien military manuals contained no strategies for dealing with guerrilla tactics, urban warfare, or enemies who refused to surrender, even when outnumbered. As the first day of the invasion ended, Verhan the Enforcer was receiving reports that shocked him to his core. His forces had suffered thousands of casualties, while the humans seemed to be growing stronger and more organized. The alien admiral had expected to be celebrating victory by now, but instead he was facing a military disaster that threatened the entire Galactic Council fleet. The humans had done something that no other species in the galaxy had ever accomplished. They had turned a technologically superior invasion force into a confused and demoralized mob. The aliens were beginning to realize that they had not invaded a primitive world full of savage barbarians. They had attacked a planet full of the most dangerous military force the galaxy had ever seen, and that force was just getting started. 3 weeks into the invasion, cracks were starting to show in the alien coalition. Captain Tony Mitchell was monitoring enemy communications from his position in an underground bunker when he intercepted a heated argument between different alien commanders. The Harmony Collective was demanding to withdraw their forces from Earth, claiming that the humans were fighting with unnecessary brutality. The Unity Federation was questioning why the Galactic Council had ever thought this invasion was a good idea. The alien species that had joined together to conquer Earth were discovering that they had very different ideas about how wars should be fought. The Kepler Coalition wanted to continue the invasion using more systematic approaches. The Drakmari forces under Verhan demanded more aggressive attacks to crush human resistance quickly. The smaller species were becoming frightened by the mounting casualties and wanted to negotiate a peaceful solution. Commander Ryan Clark had been analyzing captured alien equipment and prisoner interrogations for days. Ryan was an intelligence officer who specialized in understanding enemy psychology and tactics. What he discovered about the alien coalition changed everything that humans thought they knew about their invaders. Most of the alien species had never fought a war that lasted longer than a few days, and none of them had ever faced an enemy like humanity. The breakthrough in understanding came when Sergeant Julie Harris captured a group of alien officers during a raid in Chicago. The prisoners were from 3 different species, and they could not agree on basic military procedures. Julie realized that the aliens had never learned to work together effectively during combat. Their alliance was based on shared fear of human violence, not on mutual respect and understanding. Dr. Nicole Brown was the psychiatrist assigned to interview the alien prisoners. Nicole was a small woman with blonde hair who had spent years studying how different cultures dealt with stress and conflict. When she talked to the captured aliens, she discovered something that amazed her. The alien species were psychologically unprepared for the kind of sustained warfare that humans considered normal. The alien prisoners told Nicole that their home worlds had not seen major conflicts for hundreds of years. When disputes arose between different groups, they were settled through negotiation, economic pressure, or brief shows of military force. The idea of fighting a war that went on for weeks or months was completely foreign to their way of thinking. They had joined the Galactic Council because they believed it would prevent long and costly wars. This information was immediately shared with General Kevin Moore, who was planning the next phase of human resistance. Kevin was a strategist who understood that the best way to defeat an enemy was to attack their weaknesses rather than their strengths. If the aliens were not mentally prepared for extended warfare, then humans could use that weakness to break their will to fight. The human counteroffensive began with a series of coordinated strikes against alien supply lines and communication networks. Major Chris Taylor led Special Forces units that used captured alien technology to infiltrate enemy positions. The aliens had never encountered enemies who could adapt their equipment and tactics so quickly. Human forces were using alien weapons against their former owners within days of capturing them. The psychological warfare campaign was just as important as the physical battles. Dr. Steve Wong had discovered that many alien species were extremely sensitive to certain types of sounds and images. Human forces began using psychological operations to spread fear and confusion among the alien troops. Broadcasting recordings of human battle cries and war songs caused some alien units to retreat without even engaging in combat. Admiral Kate Sullivan was preparing the most ambitious operation in human space warfare history. Kate had spent the previous weeks studying the movement patterns of the alien fleet and had identified a critical weakness in their defensive formations. The aliens arranged their ships based on formal protocols that prioritized appearance and tradition over tactical effectiveness. Operation Thunderstrike was designed to exploit the alien fleet's rigid command structure. Human forces would use fast attack craft to strike at the alien fleet's command ships, while larger vessels created diversions in other parts of the solar system. The plan required perfect timing and coordination, but it could cripple the alien fleet's ability to support their ground forces on Earth. The operation began when Captain Jake Morrison led a squadron of modified fighters on a high-speed approach toward the alien command vessel. Jake's ship had been equipped with experimental stealth technology that made it nearly invisible to alien sensors. His mission was to plant explosive charges on the enemy flagship while the main attack drew the aliens' attention elsewhere. Meanwhile, on Earth's surface, the urban warfare had evolved into something that terrified the alien ground forces. Lieutenant Colonel Danny Brooks had turned entire city blocks into interconnected fortresses where human defenders could move unseen while alien forces were channeled into killing zones. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to control the very ground beneath their feet. The aliens' worst nightmare became reality when human forces began hunting them in the ruins of damaged cities. Colonel Amy Rodriguez led teams of special operations soldiers who moved through the urban landscape like apex predators. These human hunters would track alien patrols for days, learning their habits and weaknesses before striking with devastating precision. The capture of alien technology accelerated as human forces became more aggressive in their tactics. Dr. Lisa Parker was analyzing recovered alien equipment and making discoveries that would change the course of the war. The aliens used incredibly advanced technology, but their equipment was designed for formal battles between civilized opponents. Human forces were adapting alien weapons for the brutal close-quarters combat that was becoming common in Earth's cities. Verhan the Enforcer was becoming desperate as reports of defeat and disaster came in from all fronts. The Drakmari Admiral had conquered dozens of worlds, but he had never faced an enemy like humanity. His forces were taking casualties at a rate that was unsustainable, and many of his allied species were demanding to withdraw from the invasion. Verhan knew that failure on Earth would mean the end of his career and possibly his life. The alien coalition's unity finally began to collapse when the Harmony Collective announced that they were withdrawing their forces from Earth. The Harmony species were peaceful by nature and had only joined the invasion because they believed it would be a quick show of force. The brutal reality of warfare against humans had proven too much for them to endure. Other alien species quickly followed the Harmony Collective's example. The Unity Federation recalled half of their ships, claiming they were needed to defend against potential human retaliation attacks on their home worlds. The Kepler Coalition began making secret communications with human diplomatic channels, hoping to negotiate a separate peace agreement. As the alien coalition crumbled, human forces prepared for the final phase of their defensive campaign. General Pete Collins had been planning Operation Liberation since the first day of the invasion. The operation would involve human forces going on the offensive for the first time, attacking alien positions with the goal of completely driving the invaders from Earth. The psychological impact of the human counteroffensive was immediate and devastating. Alien forces that had expected to be celebrating victory were instead fighting desperately for their survival. Many alien soldiers surrendered rather than face human forces in combat. Others deserted their posts and tried to reach evacuation ships before the humans could find them. Commander Alex Turner intercepted alien communications that revealed the true extent of the coalition's collapse. Species that had been allies for centuries were now blaming each other for the disaster on Earth. Some aliens were calling for the complete withdrawal of all Galactic Council forces, while others demanded that their home governments send reinforcements to save what remained of the invasion fleet. The war that the aliens had expected to win in days had turned into a months-long nightmare that was destroying their military forces and their political alliances. The humans had not only defended their world successfully, but they had also shattered the most powerful military coalition in the galaxy. The aliens were beginning to realize that they had made a terrible mistake by underestimating the species they had dismissed as primitive savages. The final battle for Earth began 6 months after the alien invasion started. Admiral Scott Parker stood on the bridge of the human flagship Liberty and watched as the last remnants of the alien fleet tried desperately to escape the solar system. Scott was a veteran commander who had learned his tactics fighting pirates and rebels in the outer colonies. Now he was leading the most important military operation in human history. The human fleet that surrounded the alien ships was completely different from the one that had faced the invasion 6 months earlier. Human engineers had reverse-engineered captured alien technology and combined it with human military innovation to create weapons and ships that were superior to anything the galaxy had ever seen. The aliens who had come to conquer Earth were now trapped by an enemy they had created through their own arrogance. Ambassador Zixth sat in the detention cell aboard the Liberty and stared at the wall in shock. The Kepler Coalition diplomat, who had been so confident about human weakness, was now a prisoner of war facing charges for crimes against humanity. Zixith could not understand how everything had gone so wrong so quickly. The invasion was supposed to have been a simple police action to control a primitive species. The systematic destruction of the alien fleet was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Human forces did not just defeat their enemies. They completely dismantled the alien military capability with surgical precision. Captain Mike Davis led bombing runs that targeted specific systems on alien ships, leaving them helpless but not destroyed. The humans wanted prisoners and intelligence. Not just victory. Dr. Emma Wilson had been working on diplomatic solutions since the war began, but the terms that humanity offered shocked the alien survivors. Emma was a negotiator who had helped end several conflicts on Earth through careful compromise and mutual understanding. However, the treaty she presented to the aliens was not a compromise. It was a complete restructuring of galactic power that put humanity in control. The peace terms demanded that all aggressive alien species completely disarm their military forces and submit to human oversight of their governments. Any species that had participated in the invasion of Earth would pay massive reparations for the damage they had caused. The Galactic Council would be dissolved and replaced with a new organization controlled by human representatives. Verhan the Enforcer was brought aboard the Liberty in chains after his flagship was captured during the final space battle. Drakmari Admiral, who had been so confident about conquering Earth, was now a broken creature who could barely speak coherently. Verhan had watched his entire fleet destroyed by enemies he had dismissed as primitive barbarians. The psychological trauma of total defeat had shattered his mind. The interrogation of captured alien officers revealed the true extent of the galaxy's military weakness. Major Chris Taylor discovered that most alien species had not fought a real war in centuries. Their military forces were designed for ceremonial purposes and brief police actions against weak opponents. They had no experience with the kind of total warfare the humans had been practicing for thousands of years. Fleet Admiral Joe Martinez was appointed to oversee the establishment of human authority throughout the galaxy. Joe was a career officer who had worked his way up through the ranks by being both intelligent and ruthless when necessary. His first task was to organize expeditionary forces that would enforce the peace treaty and establish human military bases on key worlds throughout. Known space. The transformation of galactic politics happened faster than anyone had expected. Species that had been members of the Galactic Council for centuries were now begging for human protection from their former allies. The unity that had briefly brought the aliens together against Earth had completely collapsed into mutual accusations. And fear. Dr. Steve Wong was leading teams of scientists who were studying captured alien technology and biology. Steve's research revealed why the aliens had been so unprepared for human-style warfare. Most alien species had evolved from prey animals that avoided conflict whenever possible. Their advanced technology had allowed them to skip the evolutionary pressure that had made humans such effective fighters. The humans who had started the war as defenders of their home world were now the dominant military force in the galaxy. Human expeditionary fleets were establishing bases on dozens of worlds, while alien governments pleaded for mercy and cooperation. The species that had tried to conquer Earth were now subjects of a human empire that stretched across the stars. Captain Tony Mitchell was monitoring communications from across the galaxy and reporting on the reactions of alien civilizations to human victory. Species that had not participated in the invasion were scrambling to demonstrate their friendship with humanity. Others were desperately trying to improve their own military capabilities in case humans decided to expand their control even further. The most shocking discovery came when human forces reached the alien home worlds and found that most of them were completely defenseless. The military forces that had been sent to conquer Earth represented almost the entire defensive capability of the Galactic Council. The aliens had gambled everything on a quick victory and had lost not just the war, but their ability to defend themselves. Commander Ryan Clark was assigned to establish human intelligence networks throughout the galaxy. Ryan discovered that many alien species were actually relieved that the old Galactic Council had been destroyed. The Council had been dominated by a few powerful species that had used their military advantage to control weaker civilizations. Human rule promised to be more fair and protective of smaller species. The psychological impact of human victory spread throughout the galaxy like a shock wave. Species that had considered themselves advanced and civilized were forced to confront the reality that they were completely helpless against determined human military forces. The humans had not just won a war. They had demonstrated that they were the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever encountered. Dr. Nicole Brown continued her psychological analysis of alien prisoners and made a discovery that explained much about the war's outcome. The alien species had developed their advanced technology as a way to avoid the kind of evolutionary pressure that had shaped human development. They had become soft and complacent, while humans had been forged by millions of years of competition and conflict. The establishment of human military bases throughout the galaxy proceeded with terrifying efficiency. Human forces seemed to understand space warfare and planetary occupation better than species that had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. The aliens watched in dread as human peacekeeping forces established control over strategic locations throughout known space. The final irony of the war became clear when alien historians began studying human military doctrine. The species that had dismissed humans as mindless savages discovered that human warfare was actually more sophisticated, strategic than anything in alien military tradition. Every human battle had been planned with a level of tactical complexity that alien commanders could barely comprehend. Ambassador Zix was eventually released from prison and allowed to return to what remained of his home government. The former Galactic Council diplomat spent the rest of his life writing warnings about the danger of underestimating human military capability. His reports became required reading for alien officials who wanted to avoid making the same fatal mistake. The galaxy that emerged from the war was fundamentally different from the one that had existed before. Humans had not just defended their world, they had conquered an empire that included hundreds of star systems and dozens of alien species. The species that had tried to eliminate human aggression had instead unleashed it upon the entire galaxy. Final lesson of the war was written in the histories of a dozen worlds. The aliens had made the fatal error of believing that the ability to fight made humans primitive and dangerous. In reality, the ability to fight had made humans the most advanced and capable species in the galaxy. The aliens had awakened something that would reshape their universe forever, and they could only watch in dread as humanity took its place as the dominant force among the stars.